But thank you guys so much for tuning into this a wonderful live. You know, every Thursday we go live with either an influencer, a clinician of color, somebody who is a successful business owner. And this is just my opportunity to give my platform to amazing individuals of color. And this lady right here, I appreciate her. It's so interesting how we have crossed paths. Just a little
Yeah.
backstory. I was interviewing for a position, and she was in my inbox, and I was just like, man, when I wanted to do a series for Pride Month, and I was talking to a lot of like my friends in the LGBTQI plus community, like you came up immediately, and so I tried to track you
Aw,
down, but you
thank
wasn't at
you.
that other facility. Tried to hit you up on LinkedIn. I was just like,
Yes.
man, and I had to go ask my clinical supervisor for your
Yes. I
information.
didn't even know
So
y'all.
for
Yeah, that's
yes,
crazy. I'm happy you
very,
tracked
very
me down. Like now you got my personal line. It doesn't have to be a whole race to come give. Hi Tracy. Oh my goodness. It's so good to see Tracy.
Hey Tracy Akeem. Good, but yes.
Jennifer,
So
hi.
so please let them know who you are and
Yeah.
tell them all about the Wishing Well Atlanta.
Oh my goodness. Anisha Cooper. I have lots of letters behind the name. But basically I'm a trauma specialist. I love working with queer people of color. Queer black people are my specialty. And so I work with trauma survivors on sexual intimacy, relearning touch, intimate partner emotionality. Thank you, Tracy. And I'm just so passionate about Black people and so passionate about queer Black people. And Wishing Well ATL was just my birth child. It was just my passion project about creating a space where a Black person could be completely themselves. I think a lot of clinicians, they focus on like, okay, well, I do trauma therapy, but they're not comfortable with seeing a queer person who has some spirituality concerns. So I just wanted Wishing Well ATL to be a space that Black people from all walks of life felt like, all right, I can go here and I can get the help I need without having to feel judged or
Yeah.
having to manipulate something. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I do. Yeah.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And don't say a little bit because that is a whole lot of what you
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for your passion and the fact that you found a niche that works specifically for you and the people that you serve. So thank you for what you
Of
do.
course.
So
Thank you
getting
for
into
having
the
me.
thick of things, a huge part of like trauma and even like trauma informed care is like looking at the individual from a holistic perspective. And even in your introduction, you talked about looking at a person's like sexual identity, their sexual history,
Mm-hmm.
looking at some of the things that have impacted them as they were growing up. And one of the tools or one of the methodologies that you typically use is narrative therapy.
Right.
And so, can you tell a little bit about what that is and how that has
Yeah.
helped you?
So what I love about narrative is that it doesn't pathologize the client, meaning, you don't, I'm not seeking to give you a diagnosis and, walk you out of the door. Narrative is about stories that we tell each other. And so narrative therapy for trauma is specific and it has three phases. The first phase is stabilization. It's just let's work on coping. Let's work on making sure the client has tangible tools that they can come out of therapy and see some symptom reduction. That's my biggest part is let me help you get comfortable, let you learn more about reducing anxiety, depression symptoms, things like that. And then the second phase is the trauma narrative. And that's really about what have you experienced and how much of that narrative is untrue. And it doesn't mean that you're necessarily lying to yourself, but there's a perspective that, if this happened to you at 7 years old, that the 30-year-old is going to look at it a little bit differently. So the trauma narrative challenges the client to make sure that their narratives align, if you will. And I really pride myself on, like, we don't have to go through every horrific event you've been through. I want to find the theme of what you've been through and help you undo unhealthy patterns. And so that is my biggest piece for the middle, the second phase. And then the last phase is reintegration, which is honestly, in my 7 years of being a therapist, it's the hardest phase for clients. They really think phase two is going to be most difficult. But phase three happens to be the most difficult for most people because you can't unsee once you heal from that trauma, you can't unsee the relationships that don't serve you anymore. You can't unsee that, oh, like I've been letting my mama get away with some stuff and now this ain't it. You can't undo it. And so the third phase is really kind of holding you accountable to apply the skills of your recovery to your life to integrate it fully, if that makes sense. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, so that's narrative. I love it. I live by it. I integrate different interventions depending on the client. I'll see an artist, a musician, or someone that I pride myself also on being someone that's going to connect to my client and really customize the treatment plan.
Definitely. I know I work in the addictions counseling space.
Yes.
So what we first try to give them is like their goodbye letter to drugs, the reason
Mm-hmm.
why they're here. For me, I don't typically look at the comp immediately because I want to see how they're going to tell me their story before I
Right.
look into all the details that come in their assessment. And it also kind of gives me a better understanding of whether or not they're going to be truthful off rip. And if they're
Right.
not, then that's A-okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then we jump into this thing called the life story, which is similar to the narrative
Narrative.
therapy. It gives them
Yes.
the opportunity to answer like this 66 question inventory on their life, whether it's like employment, their childhood, their adolescence,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. And then, like you mentioned, just utilizing that packet to see how we can pull out certain key factors to kind of build up like the treatment plan or the interventions that
Yeah, it sounds like the themes that y'all are pulling out and then creating. Yeah, it sounds very similar to what we do. That's dope.
definitely.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
you. Whew, we need you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a question. Akeem says, how do you help clients not fall back into those patterns that you help cope in stage 3?
For me, it's about leveraging what they want. Sometimes it's I have to allow the client to kind of do what they're gonna do, which is it's hard. I'm gonna hold you accountable. I'm gonna push you. I'm gonna love you in a firm way, but sometimes clients they don't want to apply it. Like if they apply what they learn, they're leveraging a relationship that in that moment might be more detrimental to them for losing. So it's for me, it's really about helping them understand the choices that they're making.
Yeah.
And are you willing to continue to engage in this unhealthy pattern because the time frame of the relationship is more important to you? And oftentimes like it brings up a lot of serious conversation of like, does this really mean that I have to let this person go? And for me it's also that narrative, like letting someone go, I think really scares people, this
Yeah.
attachment mindset of like, oh, I need them. And so I say, like, what are you letting go in you to maintain that relationship? And I think that's really encouraged a lot of people to think like, do I want to, like, I've invested time, money, and energy in this recovery process. And so maintaining these unhealthy patterns, what am I releasing and to maintain it? And so, oftentimes clients are like, oh, it's not worth it. This is not worth it.
Right. Definitely. On my end, from my experience, I when it comes to either relationships or even behavioral patterns, I get them to assess the quality and the context of the relationship or that
Mm.
behavioral pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that serve them? Because we understand like the reason why we still hold on to these particular patterns is because we have some level of secondary gains. So
Right.
what are we benefiting from these patterns? Because obviously we haven't let it go because
Mm-hmm.
like we're still holding on to it. We are gaining something from it.
Right.
And if we aren't gaining something from it, then how is it serving us in the here and now? And even when we're evaluating who we are now in comparison to who we want to become, how does this behavioral pattern serve us as we're trying to evolve into the person that we're trying to become?
This is so beautiful. Like, I really think we're doing the same type of like intervention with different demographics. That's so dope to hear how you navigate it. Yeah, and I think people, once they hear like what they're gaining, sometimes it's like, oh, I'm just familiar with this.
Yeah,
Like, is that really
exactly.
it? Oh, I don't know if I want that.
Right. I had a client tell me today, it was just like, I'm just used to doing it. And I'm like, you never put any thought into it,
Right,
the
right.
intention behind it, the motivation behind it. No,
Exactly.
I was just so used to doing it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
I we're gonna have to collaborate after this. Like you got my mind going. I'm like, this is dope. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So getting into the intersectionality
Woo,
of the
yeah.
whole person, I had, like I mentioned, I was definitely reaching out to a lot of my friends who are within the LGBTQI plus community. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that there are a number of things that we come across. And like I had mentioned in the email, I do not want to minimize the experience of coming out or even like the fear of rejection or anything like that. But after we get over the hurdle of coming out to our friends and our loved ones, how do we navigate things like coming to terms with like religiosity versus
Mm-hmm.
spirituality, finding our place in the world, finding individuals who mirror our behaviors, or finding those mentors that can lead to representation, or even just navigating just general life concerns. So how do you help your clients navigate those things?
So it really depends on like what specifically they're trying to do. For religion and spirituality, it's the grace method, which the grace method really encourages the client to consider there's three outcomes. Either I'm going to reject my sexuality, reject my religion. Oh, I'm sorry, four outcomes: reject my sexuality, reject my religion, integrate, or compartmentalize. And so once you kind of give them options for that, then they can go, ooh, and it's a real conversation. Like, I'm not here to tell them what's right or wrong, but it's really about helping them negotiate what have you been taught and how many things do you actually agree with that. Are you coming up with your own idea about how you're supposed to be in this religion or this spirituality? How do you know what you know? So that's the conversation that will come up for sexuality and spirituality. Other topics, it's really, there's this idea in the Black community, like we got to keep it real, we got to be authentic. Blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. I'm like, let's cut the crap, if you will. I'm so like, this is Instagram. I'm trying to. I
Go ahead.
curse a lot, so I'm working on it. But my thing is like, everybody doesn't deserve your authenticity. One, two, your authenticity comes at a cost, which might be your safety.
Mm,
And so oftentimes I encourage people, like, let's get out of this mindset, like you got to keep it real everywhere you go. Like that's not the land we live in. I wish that was. I'm happy I can hold space for people where they can be all of themselves, but the collaboration with other entities is what helps them broaden those spaces. But the world we
mm,
live in, obviously, is not accepting of all of that. So I say,
right.
like, what is important to you? Can you do what you are you willing to accept the consequences of either action? If you're rejecting yourself, but you feel safe in this space, which one are you willing to negotiate? And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate that that's the type of reality I have to present my clients with. And that's why I'm so big on collaborations. Like, just thank you so much for having me on Legacy Speaks, because these type of collaborations help clients not have to just manipulate themselves in one space. It's like, oh, I can be myself in multiple spaces. Let me find other clinicians and body practitioners that allow clients to do that. Because let's be real, Black people in general, we don't have a lot of space. Queer Black
Right.
people, you have the queer in front of it, and you minimize it exponentially. Like, some people in Black communities don't think that my life is as important because I'm a lesbian. So it's just interesting to like present the reality to clients and ask them and encourage them to consider what is best and healthiest for them. Maybe you can't be out at your job because you want to pay your bills, and I'm not about to
Mhm.
make you feel bad about that. I'm not, because that is a financial security. So it's just a real conversation about negotiating what means a lot to them in that moment. And sometimes the reality is you have to sacrifice parts of you. And I hate, that's the worst part of my job. I hate having to talk to clients about that reality.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Someone was like, Oh, yeah. We need you. Yes, ma'am, we do. Thank you for creating this amazing space. It's so funny that you were saying that because I was talking to my therapist about that.
Yeah.
I was like dealing with the fact that I felt like I could not show up authentically across the board in various spaces. And she was just like, there are times where you're going to need to compartmentalize, but how can you essentially become limitless in a limited situation? And I'm
Yes. Oh, that's so
yeah.
good. Your therapist. Okay. I
Well,
gotta
the
get a therapist so
limited
I
in a
can.
limitless situation, that was me. Okay, that was me.
Oh, brother.
But
You got
shout out
it.
to my therapist though, for real. But like essentially that's what she was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when it comes to like just clients in general, especially clients that are like or in the queer population or whatever the case may be, or even like just friends altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I've had friends who have told me that it's just difficult to be fully out at work
Mm-hmm.
because of the culture that's there. And
Right.
so finding spaces that one generate healing,
Mm-hmm.
generate affirmation, generate support in any type of way. I really do hope and pray that those avenues continue to grow within our community,
Right.
because it's just so interesting how even now in these heightened times we still find ourselves in pockets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's definitely a struggle to
It
get on
is.
one accord as a collective.
Yes, it is a struggle. It's hard. It is hard, right? Especially now, with this idea of like not being as connected and trying to encourage people to like, social distance doesn't mean like emotionally like you can't connect to people. And so I think finding those spaces has been even more difficult because I mean I had a 16-year-old client who she can't go nowhere but home, and she's a lesbian, and they not okay with that. Her people not okay with that. So they're having this reality of like I have to be in a space. I'm required to stay in this space or risk my like health. Um, people had to consider like how am I going to manipulate and mold and bend, and I think it's important to honor people's like journey. I think a lot of people get on the other side, even myself sometimes, like as an open lesbian black woman, I forget, and that's what I love so much. I'm so privileged to have the job I do, where I can remember like this is not easy. I work with people day in and day out that are like, I can't be who I am right
Right.
now because I will be homeless. That's a reality. And so being able to love someone through that, and just even if it's an hour a week, this is your space to be all the things, is just an honor for me. And I wish it were different, and I'm working on making it different, but it's a lot of people who would have it a different way.
Yeah, it's difficult when you're challenging a whole mindset,
Mm-hmm.
where like we as a people have a tendency to look at things, or I don't want to say as a people, but as a society, very
Mm-hmm.
polarized way of thinking, very black and white, and we pick and choose when we want to think in the gray. And I think it's very important to encourage our clients to know that they can live in the this and that, or live in
Yes.
the both and.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be both queer and black, you know.
Yes.
You can be both professional and trans. You can do it
Yes.
all.
You can do it
It's a
all. And it's just like finding spaces to do that thing, like integrating. Even ideally, I want people to be able to be their full selves, but finding spaces to be these different parts of themselves isn't as like taboo as we might think it is. The way I talk to my daughter is very different than how I'm talking to you. The way that I interact with someone I just met might be very different than the way I'm interacting with my best friend. And so that doesn't mean that I'm all of a sudden not the same person. It's I've adapted to the situation, and those parts of me still exist. And so making sure that clients understand like you don't even have to vilify yourself or demonize like the fact that you can be a chameleon. That's so mad. That's what's so dope about being black. Like we fit in anywhere. So yeah, I think we're adaptable, and I just encourage people to like stop beating yourself up because you can't be all yourself out of safety. It's okay.
Thank you. You're
Yeah.
not selling out, y'all. You're just doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
If you're loving what you're hearing, please hit that heart little section in the corner. Just hit the double tap the hearts, okay? Just go at it because she's
Right.
dropping some gems.
Yeah.
Let's transition into anger because these last couple of weeks. I mean, we've been angry for some centuries, okay? For some time now, for some decades. But I think even now these couple of weeks have been very heavy
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people,
Yes.
and we're understandably, I think from the counseling perspective, we look at anger from as a secondary emotion, right? And I saw on your profile you had the anger iceberg, and I was like, I use
I
that anger iceberg
That
all the
is
time,
real,
because
right?
underneath it, I know for a lot of us, we're dealing with like feeling disrespected, feeling forgotten, feeling rejected, feeling unheard. There's so many like primary emotions that we're dealing with, and it's
Right.
coming out in forms of like either aggression or cursing or wanting to fight,
Right.
wanting to riot and loot. Or even passive ways like coming to work late or
I went,
not turning in a
I went
document
from
on
myself to
time.
everybody. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's a lot.
So yes, I know even for me at my job, I brought in a painting of Angela Davis and put it on my wall just to like show out
He was like, listen, I am here. Let's do it.
unapologetically here, okay? Just to let
Yeah.
y'all know. But how do you help clients work through anger? And specifically individuals who are pulling up to the protest and trying to settle themselves in the midst of pursuing social justice.
Oh, it's rough. Like, I'm so human. Um, so human. I try to allow them to feel what they need to feel. I really do. I work with these cis hetero black men that I absolutely love. And it frustrates me that they feel very contained. Like, I can't run outside and just scream. Like, I'm a big man and I'm a black man, and that's not something that I feel safe doing. And so one of the things I offer different tools to help them understand, like, let's channel this and understand it. Like the angry iceberg that you mentioned is really big because sometimes anger feels bigger than the body. And when you can really get to the root of it, like, I'm hurting, I'm grieving, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, you can contain it in a different way in the body and channel it in a different way. So oftentimes I want them to get to the root of it. And I've also encouraged them to not, again, demonize or vilify any emotion. That anger
Right.
is so powerful. Anger is not something that we need to continuously like judge and go like, ooh, you can't feel that thing. Like, all emotions are valid. I feel
Yes.
like we vibe on that. How you handle it is what makes it healthy or unhealthy. And so anger is why I can be here with you with the education. Anger is why I could marry my partner if I chose to. Anger has so many outlets, and I think it's important that we don't think of it like this is a negative thing. I can't feel it. So more than anything, I give people permission to feel what they feel. And then I say, let's channel, what's the healthiest route for you to do that? Okay, you're an artist, you want to draw it, you want to create some angry art, let's do it. You're a poet, you want to make some poetry, let's go. You a football player, you gonna play I've worked with big football players. And they're like, all right, well, let's go have a game. Like, let me go get my boys together who also been quarantined. Let's just have a game.
Right.
But I also think it's important to just hear each other, create space where you allow each other to be angry. Like, we don't have to perform our grief for public consumption as a black
Mm.
community. I think that's part of the problem is like white people, I mean, they're desensitized to watching, and we are becoming desensitized to watching our own pain. And that's anger. We are getting angry that people aren't listening, but everyone's getting desensitized to it. And so I encourage people to spread black joy all day. And I'm like, listen, you have an opportunity to change a narrative. Everyone's looking to consume black pain. It makes channel ratings go up. It makes money go round. And
Right.
so why not change the narrative? Why not dance this out? Why not listen to your favorite trap song? There's some good trap music that'll let that anger out. So I'm like,
Yes.
let's make an angry playlist and you go do what you gotta do in your house. We get creative with it, really. We have fun too. I'm like, you deserve to smile. Why can't your protest be your laughter, your dance, your joy, your existence in and of itself is politically revolutionary. So just be. Sometimes it's okay. You don't have to. We don't have to crank it out for consumption.
Yes, that was a bar. Why can't your protest be your laughter
Come
and your
on, like let's
joy?
go. Like
Yes, and I
everything.
know I know you were saying not only hear the anger, but also being willing to see the anger.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have clients who come in and, I'm fine you to death or I'm okay you to
Right.
death, right? But we'll be sitting in that chair very anxious in nature, pulling on your clothes, shaking your leg
Right.
or whatever. So being mindful of those cues and looking at the paralinguals and reading in between the lines. And I had dropped a video earlier on Instagram talking about like multicultural competency and why it's
Oh yes.
so important. Like language is not just the words that we say, but our body language, how we carry ourselves, our cultural traditions, a lot of the things that a lot of individuals will not even pay attention to or even be mindful of.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. I'm here for all of this. I love what you're doing about creating it. I do that with kids often, and a lot of the kids have dropped off because of the pandemic. It's hard to do therapy with a child online in like trying to figure out how to work everything. But I feel like that's a great opportunity for adults. Like I can take a lot of the play therapy that I use with children's anger and how does it feel? What color is it? And giving them a visual is so helpful to kind of externalize it.
yeah, what I do is I'll get like a silhouette. In Google they have like kind of like an autopsy little
Oh
frame or whatever
yeah.
like that. And so it's like a person, and then I give them colors and I assign the colors and emotion. So like yellow would be joy, green would be happiness, purple is worry, blue is sadness, red is love,
Wow,
and
I love it.
orange is anger. And I tell them to just have at it, like color the body depending on how much that emotion fills up in the body. And it sometimes they'll color the body portion of or whatever the case may be where they're feeling that emotion. So I've had clients like color worry from the top up and sadness from the neck down
Wow,
and
I
have like
love that.
anger in their shoulders. And so it's just like I'm just telling them to have at it and they are just going with it. And I love doing activities like that with adults
Yeah.
because it helps them get in touch with their inner child. I think coloring is amazing. Art therapy is amazing. Music therapy is amazing.
You've
Sometimes
inspired
when the
me.
room is too heavy, I ask them, okay, what vibe are we into? Are we listening to trap? Are we listening to hard rock? Are we listening to some gospel and
I
just have that
dig
playing in the
it.
background? So
Okay, well, see, I'm about to steal that. Thank you for
no
sharing
problem. Go
the tips.
ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you so much. I love learning from other therapists. Like, this is beautiful. Thank you.
No problem. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep growing my beard in the rebellion.
Yes,
Oh,
go King. Yes, keep growing your beard in rebellion.
yes.
Yes. Anybody else?
Any other
Oh,
questions?
y'all quiet today.
Oh,
Okay.
everybody sleep. It's Thursday. I'm like, come on. A couple of my friends were like, what time? Okay, girl, I'm gonna try. I was like,
But it's okay. Just tell them to tune into the replay.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I'm
But yes, you're right. It is a little past bedtime. But
okay,
Anisha, thank you
listen.
so
Of
much for
course.
all that you do. Thank you for your time. Let them know
Absolutely.
where the people can find you.
Yes, I will. I'm on at Hanging with Coop. If you know the '90s show, Hang On with Mr. Cooper. As a Cooper growing up, it was kind of cool because I lived with my dad, and I was like, what? They don't never show shows with the dad like this. So Hanging with Coop is my little tribute to that show. Hanging W underscore Coop. Or at the Wishing Well ATL. That's the business page. That's what we're doing. That's where you can find a lot of the like protests. You can find other Black mental health therapists that I vibe with. Legacy Speaks is on the newest marketing for that. And yeah, text the number, and I'm happy to connect people with more resources. I'm only one person, but I'm connecting all the time.
All everywhere.
Yes.
And if you guys weren't able to catch that, I have tagged her in everything. So double back
Thank
and
you.
slide into her DMs. Check
Yeah.
out her website. Once again, that's at the Wishing Well ATL.
Yes.
Okay. And definitely stay tuned
Hey,
as we continue this series. Hey,
yeah.
Motor City Low. Hey, Low. I see you, girl. But I really do appreciate you. And y'all, please stay tuned. We're here every Thursday at 9 p.m. So thank
Yes.
you so much.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.